okay, Jesus, I know you got our message.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to die any minute. You are nowhere to be found. Lazarus dies. And there's a couple days, because it says Jesus waited a couple days. By the time he shows up and tells them to move the stone, I think it says it's been 4 days. Yeah. So this is at least 3 or 4 days that they're sitting in this disappointment.
Yeah. Welcome to Living Out 180, a podcast from 180 Church where we talk about faith, leadership, and everyday life. We'd like to welcome you to the podcast today. I'm your host, Kendall Terry, and I am here with Pastor Kelcey Bumbalough.
Hello. Glad to be back.
That's right. We're kind of doing right now we're rotating 1 week with Pastor Brad, 1 week with you.
We are.
And we're just going back and forth.
He's enjoying his time off.
Although he told me that he would rather be here recording.
Yes,
so
he
that
does.
Made me feel good.
He does enjoy vacation, but he misses being there on Sundays for sure and doing this with you.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of good time talking, actually, just like we have today, of a lot of conversation happening before the recording starts.
Yes.
And
yes.
That has probably been more of a help to me than anything else, but I've enjoyed it. And people probably wish we had the recording going during some of those conversations, but that's just not the way life works.
No, it's not.
So today's recording is looking at a message that you did a couple weeks ago that you titled Believe, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
It's part of our New Things series.
And so it was really a kind of wrapping up some ideas as part of that series. And as we went through that series of looking at new faith and new strategies, we talked about new community. It was just this understanding of all of these things happening and looking towards what God might be doing in our lives, mm-hmm. which is great. That's a great thing to be looking at, right? And realizing that there are plans and God's wanting to do great things and new things. And then I think this message was right at the right time because when I'm sitting here looking sometimes at the world and at the life that's going on around me, it is that struggle of God. I'm trying to see new things. I'm trying to see what you're doing. I have that belief. You know, we talked about this, I think, actually the last time you were here on the podcast, of that statement of, God, I believe, but help my unbelief. Like, mm-hmm. It's all there. And then that's what you in essence, the message was about, was having faith, like choosing to believe.
Yep. Someone had asked me to speak at a ladies' conference prior to this. And the question that they asked me was, how do we believe that God hears our prayers in every situation? Mm. How do we believe that he hears us when we pray? And that's kind of what spurred this along. And I felt like if we can get to a point where we do believe that he hears us when we pray, that helps us in those steps of repenting, moving on, committing, and implementing something new.
And I think for anybody out there that's been trying to walk this thing out with Christ for any amount of time, you have those times when you pray and go, God, this can't be the plan. Mm-hmm. What's going on right now in my life can't be the plan, or this can't be the next step. You know, I'm trying to see how you're doing something here. I'm trying to see where your hand is at right now in my life. And God, I need to know that this isn't it. Yep. That is a hard prayer to pray.
And I think it's common. I mean, I think me personally, I won't speak for anyone else. I would be crazy to say if I didn't ever say, God, I feel like you're ignoring. I feel like you're not listening. God, I know that you can do something here. Why are you not? Mm-hmm. Why are you seemingly not moving at all?
Yeah.
And I would like to say that I've mastered that and I don't feel that, but I'm also human. And there's many times that I ask God, where are you? Yeah. Are you close? Are you listening? Are you hearing any of it?
And there's a song that we sing in church. I mean, it's a common song out there, but it's even when I can't see it, even when I can't feel it, God, you're working. Mm-hmm. That that song, and I love singing that song when we do it in worship. I mean, I have it on a playlist, that plays on my own personal devices at times, but that's just the reality, because so many times it's that question of, God, I can't see it. I don't feel you in this moment, God. And God, I need something. I need an answer. I need something. And sometimes we get in those spots in our life where we just don't feel like God is hearing, God is showing up, God is doing anything for us right now. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of one of those, we always want the podcast to just be this real discussion. And that is real life. Mm-hmm. That I feel like, God, I feel like you're ignoring me. I feel like you must not see what I'm seeing. You must not feel what I'm feeling. You must not know what is going on here. Like, God is, like, whatever's going on, that you're not recognizing the situation. And when you talk to individuals, you think that you're unique in that. You think that, God, am I the only one? It's kind of like in the Bible, it's there's a story of one of the prophets that he goes up in the wood or in the mountains in a cave, and he says, I'm, just go ahead and kill me now, God. I'm the only one left that believes. Yep. And God says, you're not the only one. There's a whole nother group over here. You just don't know about them. But in that moment for him, it was, I don't see anyone else. I don't see God moving in any other way. So I must be it. And if I'm it, then forget it. I'm out. And that's just the reality of, I think, human life. I think that's just the reality of what this thing looks like in real life. Mm-hmm. If we're going to talk real, like, we're not here trying to get somebody to give money. We're not here trying to, like, none of those things. We're not trying to persuade you into believe. This is just real life. And in real life, there are times that you're praying saying, God, where are you at? And so if we're experiencing that, and we could give multiple examples actually in the Bible. Sometimes we read the Bible and because we know what happens at the end, we miss the struggle. Mm-hmm. And so then when we start going through the struggle, we act like this is a new thing for God to go, well, I didn't even realize they were going to experience that. And There's so many examples in the Bible of the struggle and people that were in the middle of some really bad circumstances. For the message, when you were preaching it, you went to John chapter 11. I love the take you had on this story. So why don't you give us the kind of Cliff Notes version of this story in John chapter 11?
So John 11 is the story of Lazarus. And growing up, especially if you've grown up in church, you know the story of Lazarus. Mm-hmm. It's a common children's church message.
Well, it's one of the first verses that people memorize, right?
It is.
Is in John chapter 11.
It is. It's so it's so long. No, Jesus wept.
Jesus wept. I mean, that's like right up there. I loved in youth camp when I was growing up, they would do this whole memory verse competition, and you always looked for that verse because It was like, I can knock that one off. I can check it.
I can remember that one.
Move on. So that one's in there too. People hear this story, right?
Yes. So when people hear Lazarus, they immediately think of the end of the story, mm-hmm. which is Lazarus had died. Jesus goes to them. He raises them from the dead, which is a big part of this story. I mean, that's a big deal.
That's why we know the story.
Exactly. It's a huge thing. But I went back and actually reread this story, and I gave a Cliff's Notes version on Sunday. It's 44 verses. No one wants to sit there and listen to me read 44 verses. But looking back at this story, Jesus is in a separate town from Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Mm-hmm. Mary and Martha know that their brothers become sick, so they send for Jesus and tell him, your dear friend is sick. Jesus stays where he is, for I believe it says 2 more days. He leaves to go back to where Mary, Martha, and Lazarus are. When he shows up, Martha sees him coming, and she approaches him and tells him, if you would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. She goes and gets Mary. Mary tells Jesus this same exact thing. If you would have been here, my brother mm-hmm. would still be here. And Jesus asked them, where is Lazarus? Where have you put him? So they take him to the tomb, and Jesus tells them to roll the stone away. And I believe it was Martha that protested. She's like, he's been in there for 4 days.
He's going to stink.
Yeah. It's ripe. in there.
I love the King James Version, but Lord, he stinketh.
He stinketh.
That's right. But Lord, he stinketh.
Exactly.
I love that.
But they roll the stone away. Jesus prays, tells Lazarus to come out, and Lazarus wakes up. He tells them to unwrap him, and he's standing in front of them. And so that is the Cliff Notes version. But as I read this story again, I realized that there's things in this story that we're so quick to pass over. Mm-hmm. Because like you said earlier, we know the end of the story. Yeah. We know he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead. But what about Martha and Mary, who sent for Jesus, and he seemingly failed them in their eyes because he didn't show up?
Right.
And so through that is where I came to my 3 points that I used on Sunday, which are things that we can do when we're in Mary and Martha's situation of, okay, Jesus, I know you got our message. Mm-hmm. Where are you?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to die any minute. You are nowhere to be found. Lazarus dies. And there's a couple days, because it says Jesus waited a couple days. By the time he shows up and tells them to move the stone, I think it says it's been 4 days. So this is at least 3 or 4 days that they're sitting in this disappointment.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I really took when reading this was this idea of looking to Jesus. In John 11:3 is where it says the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. To me, that tells me personally that Mary and Martha knew that Jesus could change the story. Mm-hmm. They knew that when he shows up, something changes.
Yeah.
But
and I think that's the reality too. If you think about this in the way, at least the way many times I operate, I wish I could say that I go to God first when I'm going through a situation, when something's happening at the house, when I'm going through something personal, whatever it is. I wish I could say that I'm going, God, you've got this, you can handle this. But too often, I've probably tried to do everything I can do before I actually go, oh yeah. And I know in my head that's not the right way to do it. But I think in the same thing here with Mary and Martha, by the time they send this message to Jesus, I wonder how long, because it says that he has fallen ill. Well, how long did Lazarus go being ill? We don't have that timeline. We don't know all the things that Mary and Martha may have tried to do to help him and to get him through this and to try to hope the fever passes, whatever may be going on. And to go, okay, we're at a point of desperation. Send a message to Jesus, because if he will show up, it's like you said, when he shows up, things change. The atmosphere changes. Like we have seen him heal the sick. We've seen him, heal blinded eyes. We've seen him cause cripples to get up and walk. Like we know he is able to do something, and we believe. And in fact, it's funny because they send the message and say, the one whom you love, like, Jesus why would he not show up for Lazarus? He loves Lazarus. Lazarus is a friend. Like he's going to show up. And you kind of, you can see that hope in Mary and Martha in that message. They did look to Jesus, which is where they should have looked. Mm-hmm. But their interpretation of what Jesus was supposed to do next was not the interpretation of what Jesus said. In fact, he literally says that to the disciples, that this illness, in verse 4, this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. That's what he told his disciples. Mm-hmm. We don't have a record that that's the message he sent to Mary and Martha.
Nope.
And if that message did get to Mary and Martha, that to them, in their human understanding, that means Jesus is going to show up and heal Lazarus. Jesus is going to show up. Mm-hmm. And he even says, this doesn't lead to death. Great. I have something to hold on to now. And then Lazarus dies.
I couldn't imagine the disappointment. And if, again, like you said, we have no record of him sending any message back to them. But I can't help but wonder, like you said, if he did send that same message to them. Yeah. Or even the disciples, because at some point the disciples, he tells them that Lazarus is dead.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder if there's something in their head saying, but you just told us that
you said this wasn't going to lead to death.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't imagine. I say I can't imagine those times that I have my plans laid out. Mm-hmm. All right, God, this is going on and I know you can fix it. And he doesn't. It's that moment of, but I had this figured out. And you can fix this so that I don't have to hurt and I don't have to be disappointed. And so it goes back to that idea of sometimes I wait too long to just hand it over and trust that he knows what's best.
Because we want to be able to solve the problem, and we want, and then when we hand it to Jesus, we want the solution to be what I have already figured out. Mm-hmm. And that's that conversation even of with God of just answer this the way I want you to answer this.
Yep.
When I think about that statement, I go to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the night before he's crucified, right? And even in that, like, Jesus knows what's going to happen. Many times we don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Jesus knows what's getting ready to happen. He knows that crucifixion is coming. He knows that he's going to go through the torture, the whipping, the cross, all of that. He knows what's coming. And he says, God, if there's any way this cup can pass from my hand. And then he says, but not my will, yours be done. That, when I hear that prayer from Jesus, and Jesus is the Son of God, and I think about sometimes how futile my prayer is in that moment, and I try to go back to that, God, if there's any way, I just want you to answer this the way I want you to answer it. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to do that, okay, God, your will be done. But I would really just rather you answer it this way. And when the answer doesn't come that way, I get upset, I get emotional, I get like all the things, right? Mm-hmm. Because I had this figured out. If God would have just listened to me, everything would have been fine.
If he would have signed off on my plan,
right,
that we could have avoided this. And it actually, this whole idea took me back to Peter walking on the water. In Matthew 14. And we always get this beautiful picture of the disciples being on a boat and there being a storm and they see Jesus walking towards them and Peter yells out, Lord, if that's you, tell me to come to you. And so Jesus tells him to come on and he steps out of the boat and I don't know if you've ever seen them, but I've seen paintings before of Peter walking on the water and it's just beautiful. And
there may be a little darkness in the background.
Yeah, just off to the distance, not where he's at. But when you read the story, the storm didn't stop when Jesus told him to step out on the water. Mm-hmm. He was actually walking in the storm to Jesus. And his eyes were on Jesus. I watched my kids at the pool. I'll admit I've done this before. You ever tried to run across the top of the pool? And obviously it doesn't happen, right. But it's pretty incredible.
You might get a step in there.
You might get one before you hit the bottom. But Peter, as soon as he remembers that there's a storm happening around him, that's when he starts to sink. And the beautiful thing, in verse 30, it says, when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. He was close enough to Jesus. Jesus never left. Jesus was close enough that as soon as he told him, I need your help, Jesus picked him up. Yep. And I always get this false idea that as soon as Jesus picked him up, all is well. But when you actually read the story, they walked through the storm together, and it was after they're back in the boat that Jesus calms the storm around him. Yeah. And what better depiction of, God, you could have made the storm stop instead of letting me sink.
Right.
When in reality, Peter, in my opinion, learned just keep looking at Jesus.
Yeah.
When you take your eyes off him, everything around you, the chaos, ends up being bigger than Jesus in your mind.
That story of Peter walking on the water is one when you really think about all of the things, because we focus on the fact that Peter walked down on the water, Jesus was walking on the water, all of this, and we forget some of the things that were transpiring. One, Peter was given the ability to walk on water. That was a spiritual thing, that he was given that ability. And it says that he turned from looking at Jesus to seeing the waves and the wind, and that he immediately began to sink. Well, so I guess we could get into some theological questioning here. Was Peter only able to walk on the water because he was looking at Jesus? Because Jesus didn't say, "Well, look at me," and then don't break eye contact and come on over. Jesus just said, "Come on." Mm-hmm. He didn't give him any rules to follow.
Nope, it was just come to me.
Come to me. And in the process of him coming to him, because he starts to look at the waves, because he starts to maybe get a little panicked about what else is going on, I don't know, all of a sudden he starts sinking. And you could ask that question, like, well, God, why? It doesn't say that Peter all of a sudden stopped believing in God. It doesn't say that Peter turned his back on God.
He's still trying to get to Jesus.
He was still trying to get to Jesus. There were other things that started to distract him and that sort of thing. And we get this story of what all was going on, the imagery there, and it's how applicable that is. Of this isn't, in the middle of this storm, this isn't me walking away from Jesus. This isn't me turning my back on Jesus. This isn't me saying, well, I don't believe in Christ anymore. None of that. It's God, the circumstances haven't really changed here, and for whatever reason, I was walking and now I'm sinking.
Yep.
And the only thing that I know to do is to say, Jesus, you got to save me here. And Jesus walks over, and they walk through the storm, through the waves, through the wind, through all the things that were still happening to get back in the boat. And like you said, that's just not how we interpret that story many times.
Not. And I think this is one of those things that my imagination sometimes gets the best of me. And when I make it to heaven, I have so many questions about so many stories. I want to know the gaps that are in between. But I don't know about you. Hearing that story growing up, when I picture Peter sinking, I picture like he's slowly sinking down into the water. But I can't help but wonder, he has, like you said, the ability to walk on top of the water. When it says he starts to sink, was it this gradual, things are not going well? Or was it like the floor was taken out from underneath him and he's literally sinking? To me, if something's sinking, it's under the water.
Right.
And so it's, in my opinion, easy sometimes to think that Peter just slowly this was happening.
And that's the picture that we have. Like you were talking about the picture of Jesus, of what happens afterwards. Well, the picture that we have of him sinking, it's kind of like he's in waist deep water, or maybe it's up a little, but what was the difference? Like, because if he was able to walk on water and then not walking on water, well, that would be on top of the water and under the water.
Exactly. And how many times does our situation go from things are going exactly how I want them to it just being turned upside down?
Yeah.
There's been so many times, even here recently, that I'm feeling really good about how life is going, and then something happens, and it's not this gradually getting to that. It's like a bomb drops, and you're wondering how in the world, like, what happened?
Right.
How did I end up here?
I think I've prayed those words exactly. Like you said, you go through and you're like, okay, today's a good day. Everything's, the sun was shining, got a good breakfast, whatever. Today's good. And then that one thing switches. That one, the one conversation, the one phone call that you don't want to get, whatever, all of a sudden goes from, I was good and I am
and now
not
I'm
good.
Yep.
And that understanding of during that time, hopefully it's not a reintroduction to Jesus at that point, but during that time of going, okay, God, literally the only thing I know to do is to say, Jesus, I need you right now. And even in that moment, that doesn't mean that the thing that I'm going through is going to dissipate. that's going to disappear. The storm did not quit. When Jesus showed up, even and eventually did show up, what was Mary and Martha's response? Well, he's dead. He's in the tomb. Like, mourners are here.
There actually, and I don't think I shared it when I told the story that Sunday, but there were actually people at the tomb when Jesus showed up that made the comment, he can heal the sick. Why couldn't he do this?
Yes.
And so, again, that's me so many times. God, I've seen someone else go through this, and I saw you bring them out the other side. Where's mine?
Yeah.
And
we even have stories of Jesus, because I go back to the centurion that came to Jesus, and he said, hey, I understand the way way authority works. You don't actually have to come heal the person that's sick at my house. You can speak it, and it can happen. And that's the way God healed that day. That's the way Jesus healed that instance. So he was able. So for Mary and Martha to go, Jesus, all you had to do was think about him surviving, and he would have been healed. All you had to do was say, and he's healed, and you didn't even have to be here. It's not like Jesus only healed through touching the person. It wasn't that Jesus only healed through proximity even. There were times that Jesus literally said that they're healed, and it says when he got back to the house, he asked, what time did the fever break? And that's the time that Jesus, that he had spoken with Jesus. So we know God could do that. And in this instance, it's kind of like that. We go to God before and we say, well, God, you've done it like this before. You know, maybe I've heard my parents give the story of how you did an answer to prayer. I know you can answer it this way. And that's not the way Jesus chooses to show up this time. It's not the words Jesus chooses to use. And it absolutely, as soon as Jesus got there, they said, if you would have been here, if you could have changed this reality for us, because the reality at that moment was Lazarus was dead. Their love in Christ had not changed.
No.
Their faith in what Christ could do had not changed. That's literally, they said, if you would have been here, this would have changed, that we would be in a different setting. So they knew what Christ was able to do. They still believed in who Christ was. But the reality was Lazarus was laying in a tomb.
Looking at this whole idea of just believing Jesus and focusing on him, it brought me to Hebrews 12, the first 2 verses. It's, since we're surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. Let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. And I stopped there. When we've talked about running before.
Absolutely.
When you think of building an endurance when running, it comes through consistency. You can't build endurance and cardio without consistently doing cardio. And so that verse is followed by, we do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. The way we build endurance, the way we run with endurance, the race God's given us, is by keeping our eyes on Jesus. He has to be a consistent. And you said earlier, and I felt it with every part of my being, that, sometimes Jesus is not my first response. It's, okay, what do I need to do to fix this? I think of when things go wrong, my husband and my parents are the first people that I call.
Absolutely.
And it's because they're consistent in my life. They're the people I talk to every day, the people I share good news and bad news with. And Jesus needs to be that for us. There's nothing wrong with, obviously, our spouse and our parents being who we call, but where does Jesus fit into that? I want to get to a point where when something bad happens, my very first response is, Jesus, I don't know what's going on, but I need you.
And I think part of what we even see in this script, in this story, and even in the one that you were talking about with Peter, and is when Jesus shows up, which is similar to what Mary and Martha were trying to get at, I think, to a degree too. But when Jesus shows up, then whatever we thought was the end doesn't have to be the end. And that is a whole lot easier to say than to walk out every day. I wish I could say that with confidence right now, but I know it. But when you're in the middle of whatever the thing is and saying, God, I need you to show up, and then we actually feel like God does show up, the hope is that whatever this is that we thought was the end is not the end. But what we also have to realize is that whatever the next step is also not necessarily the step that I thought I was going to take. It might be, but it might not be. And I think that's the same with Mary and Martha. Like, they were like, Lazarus is dead. Okay, yes, Jesus is here, and he does comfort, and we have a hope because of him. And like I said, it doesn't say that they no longer believed in Jesus. So they knew all of those other things, but what they didn't realize is what Jesus was getting ready to do to the current circumstance. Because that's not the interaction, right? You even just said, like, Martha goes, well, God, you just said roll the stone away. He stinks. Like, I don't know what your plan is here, but he dead.
Yep. And he'd been dead for a minute.
Yeah. So we're not talking about maybe we thought he was dead and he wasn't really dead. He was just asleep and all that. No, he's been dead 4 days. That stone has been rolled in front of that tomb, and it's been hot. And there's going to be an aroma if we open that thing up. And so even in that, it wasn't like they were sitting over there going, well, yeah, get that stone out of the way. God's getting ready to, step in. Jesus is getting ready to heal. Jesus is getting ready to bring Lazarus back from the dead. That's not even where Mary and Martha were at. They really thought that part of the story is over. Yep.
And that entire idea was part of what I went into next, which is this idea that struggle, that disappointment doesn't have to be the end. That struggle or disappointment, it can be a place of growth, not only for you, but for the people around you and the people that are watching the situation that you're in. And there's multiple verses in this story, and I read a couple of them. You actually quoted one of them earlier, which was chapter 11, verse 4. When Jesus heard about it, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. And then in verses 14 and 15, it says, so he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there. For now you'll really believe. Come, let's go see him. I couldn't imagine being the disciples in this moment of Jesus saying, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't there. Like, what is... They don't know the end of the story. Like what do you mean?
For my sake, I'm glad he wasn't there. I'm glad I wasn't there. No, God, like you, as Mary and Martha have already stated, like if you would have been here, this would have been different. So are you saying you're glad he's dead? Are you saying, like, what are you meaning? And sometimes, and I think we've already said this many times on the podcast, of because we know the end of the story, we act like, oh, they understood what he meant whenever he said that. Well, think about that. If somebody would say that, you're sitting there with your dead loved one, and they step in and go, for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't here and this person's dead. Well, I'd have a hard time not hitting you in the face. Yep. And so, because you're in your emotions at that point, and I think that's where we have to sometimes realize God recognizes our human emotion. God made us the way he made us. He knows that we go through these emotions. He knows that we go through the ups and downs and the highs and lows and the understanding and the not understanding, the believing and the not believing. He knows that we go through those things. And I just think that's awesome that he says that I'm glad for your sake. I'm glad I wasn't here because I would have healed him. He did love Lazarus. He did. Like, he knew Lazarus. So, and he said, for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't here because now you're going to get to see something that you feel like is impossible.
And in this idea, I mean, obviously Jesus waited, and I don't believe that Jesus caused Lazarus's death. I don't think it was a situation where God said, you know what, if Lazarus dies, then I can do this and people will believe. Yeah. I think Jesus took a terrible situation and saw something good that could come from it. Yeah. And I mean, we live in a broken world. We live in a sinful, broken world. And I can make a list of things in my life that have not been ideal. I don't think God orchestrated tragedy in my life. But if I'm going to believe in Romans 8:28, if I'm going to believe that's true, this is a verse to me that I think gets misconstrued so often. We know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love him. People like to use that to say that everything's good. I mean, some people today would look at Mary and Martha if they had Romans 8:28 and say, it's okay.
Yeah, God's going to work this out.
God's going to work it out. It's going to work out good. And Mary and Martha are like, this is not good. Right. There's nothing good about this. Dead. Yeah. But Lazarus died. Jesus took that opportunity to raise him from the dead in front of, we don't know how many people.
Right. There was a crowd. We know that.
There was. And at the very end of the story, it actually says many of the people that were with Mary believed because they got to see this. Mm-hmm. Something terrible happened. Mary and Martha faced a tragedy, but them and the people with them, Jesus' own disciples, through that, their faith grew because Jesus saw an opportunity in that moment to do something phenomenal.
Yeah.
And you said it earlier, it's hard when you're in the middle of it. It's easy when things are great to talk about this and be like, you know what? God's going to work it out. He's got this. It's all going to be good. But when you're in the middle of it, I think sometimes trusting his timing and his plan and believing something good will come from it is one of the most difficult things to do.
Yeah. And for those that might be wondering if this comes into the podcast, I know we were talking about storms. A storm has come up outside of us recording right now that there's possibly nothing I can do to take this out of the background. So
I actually heard it and I looked down because I thought my water bottle had turned over. I just heard water.
If there's sound effects, we didn't add those in just because we're talking about a storm. There's actually a storm happening all of a sudden out here. And so hopefully it won't be too much of a noise. And if you can't hear it, then great. Maybe I did do a great job of editing this later on.
There we go.
But I think then we get to this point in the story too, whenever, Lazarus comes out, they unwrap him. You know, he was still in the clothing that they had wrapped him up in, the cloth, and they unwrap him. And now you get another thing that I think we miss sometimes as we go through whatever we go through, is now we have to figure out how to use this as a testimony, even if the answer wasn't what we thought the answer was going to be. Now, in this case, it's probably easy for Mary and Martha and Lazarus to use this as a testimony of like, man, this dude was dead for 4 days and he came walking out. But there's also times when we look at the solution that God provides, and because it wasn't the thing that was on my list, okay, we survived it, but we don't use it to say, God might put people in my life that I need to interact with, and I need to point them towards there could be a plan that you don't know here. Mm-hmm. There could be an answer that you don't know. The Romans 8 of, God works everything for the good, but sometimes that good is not the good that you're thinking it is.
And a lot of times we think, I won't put this on anybody else, in order for it to be a testimony, it has to be this amazing, you know what? I didn't think God heard me. This terrible thing happened, but guess what?
Yeah.
Lazarus is alive. And if it's not that extravagant, sometimes to me it's not a testimony, when in fact it is.
It is.
In 2 Corinthians, it's chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. It says, all praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. God is our merciful Father and the source of all comfort. Mm-hmm. He comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others when they are troubled. We will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us. That spells it out.
Yeah.
God comforts us, and we can turn around and use that to push others who may be going through the same situation or be in the same boat.
Because when we're going through the things that we go through. And for everybody listening, I think it's important to understand that if there's something going on and it's real, like, it's okay for the emotion that you're having in the moment.
Absolutely.
It's like sometimes that's like we almost make people feel bad for the way they reacted, and it's like, well, you should have acted better in that. No, guess what? We're human, and sometimes I react in right ways, and sometimes I react in wrong. Sometimes I react in anger, and sometimes I react in peace and calm, and sometimes I get it right in my reaction, sometimes I don't. And you go through emotions, and like I said, understanding that God made us and He knows that humans go through emotions. And sometimes I need to be careful in how I interact with others, of just saying to them, like, you know what, you can get through this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that God's going to answer your question the way He answered my question, because the thing you're going through is the thing you're going through.
Yep.
And so just because I've got an experience here doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you this, and this is how God's going to step in here for you too. I don't know how God's going to step in here for you. I can speak with confidence in this moment to say, God can solve this the way you want Him to. God can also solve this the way He wants to. Mm-hmm. He can literally do, as we see with Lazarus, He can do what we would call the impossible. And if God is able to do the impossible, I have to have faith that however He steps in here, however He's got this thing figured out, it's going to be on the other side of it an amazing testimony. Mm-hmm. And then I have to use that to help comfort others. I have to use that to say, God, help me to see another circumstance for me to use this experience in a positive way. Help me to relay this to my kids, how you showed up this day and brought Lazarus out of the grave. Mm-hmm. How you showed up and it wasn't the answer I was looking for. It wasn't the way that I thought the solution needed to come. God, you taught me something. And in the middle of that, see what God is able to do. And sometimes we may not still be satisfied with the result.
Nope. And the last part of this, I actually get a chance to share a little bit of my own story, but I'm a type 1 diabetic. And when I look at Romans 8:28, God works all things together for good. And then I read about comforting others because He comforts us. I pray for healing. I still do. And again, we'll get into this, but I don't have the answer I want, mm-hmm. or the answer that is, in my opinion, the best outcome. But I can't tell you the number of kids that have been diagnosed with this that I've been able to help because of God helping me through it. It's not me, but God has helped me use my situation to comfort others and encourage them and show them, you can live with this. You will be okay. Which, again, speaking of that, brings me to the last part of the message, which was believing even in disappointment. We've talked about it the whole time. Mary and Martha were disappointed.
Absolutely.
I think it would be insane to say that they weren't. Their response to Jesus, both of them, if you would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Yep. But when I told that story, I didn't actually share all of what Martha said because I wanted to save it for the end. Yep. But in verses 21 and 22, she said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. And she followed it with this statement, but even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask. What kind of faith does that take? Because again, Martha didn't know that Jesus was going to raise him from the dead. In her mind, her brother is dead and has been dead. And that's the end of the story. Yeah. And so to be able to say, God, you could have fixed this. You could have changed this. You didn't. And even now, I still know that you answer prayers. Yeah. Is beyond sometimes my scope of thinking. My family stands on Daniel 3:18, which is the story of the 3 Hebrew men. Yeah. They were about to be thrown into the fiery furnace, and they tell the king, if you throw us into this fire, our God can save us. But even if he doesn't,
Yeah.
He's still our God.
Yeah.
We will not bow down to you. And just like Mary and Martha, they don't know the end of the story. They don't know if God's actually going to save them. They knew he was able, but they were able to say, just like Martha, even if you don't, it's not going to change who you are to me. And growing up, there's a lot of reasons my family holds on to that. And I said it just a few minutes ago, we have prayed for my brother and I to be healed. Mm-hmm. We still do. We have not given up on that. So please don't mishear me. But I have grown to a point that even though I still pray it, I still believe he's capable of it. I still believe he can do it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't change who I am in him. And it doesn't change in my eyes who he is.
Right.
He is still capable. He is still able. He is still sovereign.
Yeah.
He can do it, but if he doesn't, I still love him.
Even now, that when you brought that out in the message, I think it was powerful, because I think too often we look at either God did or he didn't, either God can or he can't, either, and we put these limits on all of this stuff. And too often in the Bible, we find these stories you just mentioned from Daniel of the 3 Hebrew children that were thrown into the fire and they, came out on the other side, right? We know the story, right? They weren't burned in the fire. I don't know whether it was hot. I know that it says they came out and their ropes were gone. That means there was real fire in there, because it burned all the ropes up. When they opened the doors, the guards getting ready to throw them in died from how hot it was. So it was real. It wasn't that it wasn't real. Somehow they didn't burn. That's what we know. Mm-hmm. And we going to go back to that. But even if, O King, and here we have Mary and Martha going, even now, there was still something that they had a belief of even now, God, you can still do something. I think about the story of Abraham and Isaac, and he's going to sacrifice Isaac. And there's a part in the Bible that reflects that story, and it said Abraham believed that if he would have sacrificed Isaac, that God would have raised him from the dead. That kind of faith of, okay, God, if this is the plan, okay, you must have something better. Mm-hmm. You must have something else out there. There's got to be, even if all of this stuff goes in a crazy direction, somehow, God, you're going to step in. And to have that kind of faith, that phrase, even now, God is able, even when I don't see it, even when all the things I see point to something that I don't want to face, that I don't want to experience, that I don't want to go through. It does not, it doesn't comfort me to say, well, even if I've got to go through the storm, God's right here with me. What I pray, God, I don't want to go through this storm. Like, I don't want to pray even if the storm doesn't go away, God, I know you're there. And I know that is the comfort. I know that is the hope. I know that God is there with me. That's the promise Jesus made to the disciples. If I don't go away, the Comforter can't come. The Comforter can actually be here with you and go through all the things that you're going through. And because he went away, it says that the Comforter then showed up. The Holy Spirit shows up to be there with us, to go through it with us, to live out this crazy world that we live in the middle of the disappointment at times, and in the middle of the celebration, in the middle of all the ways that God answered our prayer exactly the way we wanted to. We got the promotion, we got the job, we got the whatever, the baby, the new thing that we were hoping to get, whatever it was. Those are the celebrations. God is there. And then when we don't get the promotion, when we don't get the new thing, when the baby doesn't come, even now, God, you are still able. You're still doing something, and I may not know what it is, but God, you are still doing something.
And I don't want to give a false narrative of myself either. The emotions are still real. Even with what I have prayed for and continue to pray for with healing, those emotions are still there. Like, it's it would be unreasonable to expect someone to just be okay.
Be okay with it.
God, you didn't do this.
I'm okay.
I still believe you. So those emotions are real, but I think being able to say this, God, even now, that means your emotions are not deciding the end of your story. Mm-hmm. It's through those emotions. God, you can use this. I have no idea how. I don't know what your plan is. I may not be a fan of it.
Yeah.
But faith can grow in the middle of that. And I came across this verse in Micah. I'm going to try to read it. I may get emotional because it's
okay.
still...
We're talking about emotions are real. They're fine.
It's still one of those that hit me. But in Micah 7:7, it says, "As for me, I look to the Lord for help. I wait confidently for God to save me, and my God will certainly hear me. Do not gloat over me, my enemies, for though I fall, I will rise again. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light." How do we get to that point of, God, I am sitting, I think I said this that Sunday, I am sitting in the deepest, darkest pit that I remember ever being in.
Yeah.
But you are my light. God, I've fallen, and I don't know how I'm going to get up, but I know I'm going to rise again.
Yeah.
That takes crazy faith. And how do we get to that point? It all goes back to Jesus.
Yeah.
In Isaiah 53, it talks about how he took our punishment.
Yeah.
He was pierced for our rebellion, crushed for our sins, beaten so we could be whole, whipped so we could be healed. He did all of that for us. He's 100% capable of healing in physical ways and relationships and jobs and family situations. But when I read he was beaten so we could be whole, I think that can mean healing, but I think he wants to heal our heart.
Right.
I think that's where it starts. I think he wants to mend hearts. And because of that idea of him mending hearts and healing hearts, I think there's a difference in experiencing disappointment and living in it.
Yeah.
And I think allowing him to make us whole can keep us from living in disappointment. And
when we have gone through, and when we're in the middle of, it's hard to figure out how to say this right. When we've gone through, it's being able to say that, of that verse in Micah 7, being able to look at those around you. Now, here's the thing. Some of those people around you are going to say, you're getting exactly what you deserve. Mm-hmm. Some of those people around you are going to be like Job's friends and go, what did you do
to deserve this?
And sometimes we get caught in that of like, well, let me see. What did I do? Did I forget to pay my tithe? Did I forget to, did I pray enough last week? Did I go to church? I missed this or I missed that. Did I fast enough? Did I, whatever it may be. And we forget that those things are the very essence of what Christ came to dissolve whenever he came and died on the cross for our sins. And he went through exactly what was prophesied in Isaiah 53 for us. He did that so that we could have access. He did that so that we could have grace. He did that so that we could feel love. He did that so that we could feel like we had the ability to get to God. And it wasn't about the law. It wasn't about him punishing us for not doing X, Y, and Z and rewarding us because we did this over here. It's about relationship with Christ. And we have that kind of access to boldly go to the throne room because of what Christ did, the punishment that he went through, all of those things that you just read. They give us the ability to go to God ourselves in the middle of everybody maybe around us saying, you're either getting what you deserve or, you overshot the moon on this one. Like, what were you thinking? You don't deserve this. You didn't earn this. Whatever the statements may be in the middle of that, that's where it's that, you're experiencing some disappointment. You're experiencing some maybe unkind words. You're experiencing some stuff that's uncomfortable. But you now have to decide, do I sit in that and live in that? Or do I say, God, when I fall, you're gonna pick me back up. When I go through problems, you're still there and you're going to be able to help me get out of those problems.
And I think that mindset is what helps what we were talking about earlier, but even now,
yeah,
I still believe. I think those two things go hand in hand. I think if you're choosing, when I choose to live in my disappointment, it's really hard to say, you know what, this is happening, but even now I believe.
That's right.
He's still in control.
Yeah.
It's that these two things go hand in hand. When you, God, even now, you answer prayers.
Yeah.
That is a reminder that this is not going to last forever. I mean, you just listed everything, that we have the ability to do because of the cross, the access, the relationship. The cross is our victory.
Right.
And it's sometimes I think I personally get in my head what victory looks like. Victory means when I go through terrible things, it's going to give me the outcome I want. No, victory is authority, and not over people, not over material things, but it's authority in telling the devil, this is happening, but you don't get to win this.
That's right. I
serve a God that's higher and can do, it says it in the word, exceedingly abundantly more than I could ever ask and think. And I'm going to believe that's going to happen. I just don't know how or when.
That is amazing. Thanks for listening to Living Out 180. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share it with someone so they can enjoy it too. Learn more or join us at 180churchtn.com. We hope you have a wonderful day.